7th to order. John, would you please do a roll call?
Yes. Board Member Diedler. Here. Board Member Level. Board Member Bush.
Here.
Board Member Bell. And Vice Chair Hanley.
Present.
All right, so we have 5 members in attendance with Chair Langberg absent.
Terrific. So the first item on our agenda today is the approval of past meeting minutes, the first being September 5th, 2023. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes?
I have one.
Great.
For 41 pages, how long did that take to transcribe from our beautiful pages?
So the previous minutes, we have a consultant that does the transcribing of those minutes. Since I think earlier this year, we've transferred over to action minutes. So it does take now in our current meeting minutes for this year of 2024, it's far less than what it has been in the past. So I can't give you an accurate answer because city staff is not doing the transcribing of those previous minutes. It was being paid for by a consultant or somebody doing it for us.
Is it charged by the page?
It was an hourly rate. So
Okay.
it depending on the meeting and what was discussed, you know, it did range.
I have a request. Since these meeting minutes are often so old,
Mhm.
can we, when we call the minutes, can we say what was on that meeting and who was in attendance? Like on September 5th, 2023, we discussed. And
Yeah. So if you'd like, it should be part of the minute package.
right, but I'd like to
itself.
get a verbal.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that would be a fair request.
yeah. So shall we start over?
Are you asking staff to provide that verbal?
Whoever.
Well,
Right.
I can certainly share who was present at that meeting. So it was Chair Langberg, myself, Lynn Diedler, and yourself, Christine.
And the topic was, do we have that?
This was the continuation of the objective design standards
Okay.
from the July 25th meeting. And
So on September 5th, 2023, our discussion topic was the continuation of the objective design standards, and present at the meeting was Langberg.
Yourself, myself, and Lynn Diedler. Yeah.
Langberg, Hanley, Level,
and
and
Diedler.
Diedler.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any comments about these meeting minutes?
No comment.
No comment? Any
No
comments?
comment.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second? I think that has to come from you, Christine.
I will second that.
Great. John, can you
Yeah.
roll?
Board Member Diedler. Board Member Level. Board Member Bush.
Absent.
Board Member Bell.
Aye.
And
Actually, Board Member Balth, you were absent for those meeting minutes, so
Oh, okay.
so absent and Vice Chair Hanley.
aye.
All right, so that motion passes with 3 ayes, 2 absents.
Great. And now we're moving on to the meeting minutes of October 24th, 2023. Let's pull these up.
And I have, so present was Chair Langberg, Vice Chair Hanley, Board Member Bell, Board Member Diedler, and Board Member Level, with Board Member Bush recusing himself. And the discussion was believe there's a couple items on there. This was for 6809 Sebastopol Avenue, the Benedetti Car Wash.
Great. Does anyone have any comments on these minutes?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of October 24th, 2023, discussing the Benedetti Car Wash at 6809 Sebastopol Avenue.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. John?
Okay, Board Member Diedler,
Oh, aye.
Board Member Level,
Aye.
Board Member Bush,
Recused.
and Board Member Bell,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Hanley.
Aye.
All right, so that motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 recused.
Excellent. Next, we have approval of meeting minutes from June 25th, 2024. And these meeting minutes, I have so many of these open.
Those, I have the July.
Thank you. So it's present was Chair Langberg, Board Member Diedler, Board Member Bush, Board Member Bell. Absent was myself and Board Member Lovell. And then the topic, this was a public hearing for 845 Gravenstein Highway North, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And this was a continuation of the May 28th meeting. Also, the public hearing of 6770 McKinley Street, the Lodge Design Review. 8338, 8441, 8451, 8480 Valley View Court, the Green Valley Vista Condos tree removal, the 540 Ellis Court tree removal. And that was it. That was a busy meeting.
Yeah.
You guys got through a lot. I wasn't present, so
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as, I guess, made as an action minute.
do we have a second?
I second.
Great. John?
Okay, Board Member Diedler,
Aye.
Board Member Level,
Recuse.
and Board Member Bush,
Aye.
Board Member Bell,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Hanley.
Recuse. Absent.
So that motion passes 3 ayes with 2 absence, or 1 absent, 1 recused.
Technically an absent.
Yeah. Okay, 2 absence then.
All right, the final item for meeting minute approval is going to be the meeting minutes from July 23rd, 2024. Present at this meeting were Chair Langberg, myself, Board Member Bush. Absent were Lynn Diedler, Christine Level, and Marshall Balf. And then the content, this was for 555 Norley Street, Village Green tree removal. And then we had to continue 2 items, which we see before us today. Thanks, guys, for being here. The Campanella and Hopmonk signage applications. So do I have a motion, I think probably from you?
Oh, I don't think we have a quorum. Is that correct?
We do not have a quorum to approve these minutes. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move those to the next.
We'll have to, do we have to
next
make a
month's
motion to
meeting.
continue them, or?
No, we'll just add them. No,
It's
it's
a little
not.
too recent, yeah.
Thanks, Carrie.
All right. Well, let's get on to the agenda. All right. So can we get a planning department update on matters of general interest, John?
Yeah, so we do have a couple. I'll cover the 2 standing ones that we always update the group on. The first one, the Woodmark Apartments on Bidig Avenue. The first phase of that construction is wrapping up, and they're hoping to have their final inspections by the end of this month. And then we'll be starting their rental component for phase 1, which is the 48 units. They have not given us a timeline yet on when phase 2 will start construction. So we're waiting on that. The Sebastopol Hotel, the city council I think it's 2 months ago now, approved a development agreement to extend the life of their entitlements and building permits for additional 3 years. They are waiting on some funding to come in, and also for the interest rates to drop down to a point where they can make the project pencil out, because that was one of the items that they discussed at the council meeting as to why they're having some difficulties starting that project up. The other hotel project that we have in review is the Barlow Hotel. It's currently the Gyaki warehouse site with their overflow parking at the old cement batch plant lot, which is kind of where they have their event overflow parking right now. They are providing us still with some documentation for that. We did receive that application in May, and then in June we sent them a incompleteness letter with some additional information that we needed to complete that review, and they've been working on getting that document so we can close up that portion of it. And that project is also seeking a development agreement. There are some requests that they have in that development agreement, including some of the fee deferrals and waiving the public art fee as part of that, and then also a request to have the project approved at the city council level and the design review component approved by staff and not go to the design review board. That part of the development agreement, the city is reviewing as well, and will likely make some changes and recommendations on that. So that's moving forward. The canopy project at the north end of town behind the O'Reilly media buildings, they submitted their grading permits a couple weeks ago, so that's in review. They're looking at submitting their building permits within the next couple weeks by mid-September, with the hopes of possibly having some foundation construction starting by the end of this year, which would be great. Huntley Square, which is another project on Bodega Avenue, has also submitted their grading permits. They have some site work that needs to be done along Bodega Avenue, which increases the sidewalk and curb gutter there, as well as providing some on-street parking. As you may know, that's a current sidewalk gap in town, so opening that up to connect will be great. A couple other grant projects that we're working on, the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Grant. We have had 2 kickoff meetings with our stakeholders to go over that. That is kind of looking at the downtown from roughly McKinley Street all the way down to, I believe it's Wilton, and then over to Petaluma as well. Looking at pedestrian and bicycle and vehicle changes possible to that section of Main Street and Petaluma Avenue. We also have the Priority Development Grant through ABAG MTC that we are still working on the scope of work to submit a request for proposal for that project. That kind of encompasses the whole 116 corridor and doing a workforce housing overlay district, which essentially allows for a more streamlined process for 100% residential projects to come through in commercial zones. Because currently we require a conditional use permit, and for some that can be seen as a barrier, especially a lot of the old kind of Victorian style homes on kind of southern Main and Petaluma Avenue that were clearly homes in the past have kind of gone back and forth between commercial and residential. You do require a use permit to turn that back into a residential use. So looking at making that an easier process to kind of help our housing crisis that we do have. And after tonight's meeting with the DRB, the Planning Commission will be reviewing the Kathy Austin project at 7621 Healdsburg Avenue. The Design Review Board saw that project as a preliminary review a couple of years ago now. The recommendation from both Design Review and Planning Commission was to come back as a 100% residential. There was a kind of commercial component along Healdsburg Avenue, which they have changed that to 12 apartment units and then 12 townhome units on the site. So that will be coming, as I mentioned, later this evening, and then would be going to City Council as a recommendation from Planning Commission, hopefully in October, and then to the Design Review Board. If it's mapped out correctly, hopefully the same month. So the first meeting in October for City Council, and then our last meeting in October for Design Review. And as far as some of the other clerical things, I know we had talked about the combination of the Design Review and Planning Commission. That is still a item that will be coming back separately to the City Council. When they had adopted their budget in August, they did request that the discussion for that combination and then looking at the Public Arts Committee and Climate Action Committee come back as a separate item so they could discuss those. I don't see that coming to the City Council by the end of this year. So I think we'll be kind of continuing forward with our meetings until a further date. So it could be January or February of next year. Before.
So the budget that they adopted had provisions for the continuation of meetings as
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of status quo until we have a better understanding of what those modifications will be, and it would probably come as a mid-year budget amendment into the next or into this fiscal year that we're in. So I think that's it. It's a lot.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So regarding the Woodmark apartments, we have 48 units now that are in the phase one. Can you refresh my memory as to how many more units will be built on that? Is it 40 more?
Yeah, there's 81 in total, I think. So 33 more units is what the phase two. I'd have to double check, but I think it's 81 total, and then 33 was phase two.
Okay, so it's 3 more buildings. Does that sound right?
That's probably, yeah, I think there was 7 buildings total, because I know there's
Okay.
4 as part of the first phase.
Okay, yeah, people are asking. So
Yeah.
on the Huntington Square, that seems like that front part there is going to need some major grading. Is it what do you anticipate for the traffic impact during that?
I don't, that's probably a better question for our engineering and public works department. I don't, I can reach out to them and ask what they anticipate for that, kind of the closure. But I know that I would, it's probably safe to say that a management plan is part of that permit submittal because of the, roadway implications that it will.
There's also a
Okay.
PG&E pole right there.
Yeah.
So it's all the things.
Yeah.
It's everything, yes.
Yeah, that the PG&E poll, I know that was a kind of design hurdle that they had to go through as part of that process.
Okay, and one more question. I read in the San Jose Mercury of all rags that Sebastopol was granted $6 million for the St. Vincent de Paul project.
Correct. So St. Vincent de Paul, I believe, applied for the HCD funding, and they were awarded that so Sebastopol, the city, and St. Vincent de Paul kind of went in as co-grant sponsors.
So because I know that her concern was getting funding to build the project. Did that
That
fill that hole for
correct.
them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they, I did have a meeting with Jack Tibbetts from St. Vincent de Paul. I believe it was a month ago. They are hopeful that they were awaiting that decision, which did come, I think, last month. At least getting foundation plans in for review this year, and then depending on how quickly those go, there is a potential possibility of them having some foundation support for that project this year. And it's weather dependent is kind of a big thing for,
Right, of
for that.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of site work that needs to be done on that parcel because it is so flat. So
Okay, thanks, John.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
You said that the Barlow Hotel wants to not go through design review board.
correct.
Can you tell me more about that? What's behind that?
They're just looking for the path that they're using an exemption that is consistent with the general plan, and they feel that the design that they've provided is consistent with the general plan as well as our design guidelines that we have adopted for the city. So their request is to not go through the design review process. There's a possibility of us having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission as kind of a preliminary meeting to go over some of the design aspects before it goes to Planning Commission for a formal recommendation. They're trying to have the process be as smooth as possible without any further meetings.
It seems like most people who submit a project like that do think they have a great project
Mhm.
and it meets every goal that you can imagine.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always turn out to be the case.
Correct. And it's, that request is not something that the city has said yes or no to. So, that is one of the things that we need to discuss as part of the negotiation of that development agreement. There's a lot of other components of it that we're still working through. So,
And is there any timetable on this project?
I don't have any specific timetables right now. I know that they want to, have it approved as soon as possible so they can get it built and constructed. But other than that, I'm not too sure.
Who is the developer on that project?
It is through Barney, and they have, I can't remember the architect's name, but they have a few consultants working with them on the project. So the plans for all of that stuff are on the city's website. So if you'd like to view them, the special projects part of the city's website, you can view both sets that they've submitted so far.
Great. Thank you, John. Any other questions of staff on items of general interest? All right, let's move on to comments from the public regarding items not on today's agenda. Let's first in the room. Does anyone have a comment on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go out to the world. And Susie, if you want to run that. Okay, I see a hand raised.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. All right. So anyway, first of all, I want to thank Christine for pointing out at one of the previous meetings what an environmental disaster that Canopy is and Canopy project, and that is exactly right. I also want you to know that I live on the corner of Hurlbut and 116, and so almost all of the neighbors on Hurlbut got together and signed petitions opposing primarily the height and the character of that Canopy project. Nobody wants it to happen here. It will change the entire character of the neighborhood. Plus, John Jay, there was so generous in giving me the environmental impact report. It is just full of fraud, and if anybody looks at it, the impact that it'll have not only on the traffic and the roads out here. Again, I live on 116. Apparently, it'll create 684 vehicle trips per day. We don't have the infrastructure for that and all the other hotels that are being planned. We don't have the sewer lines, water lines. The surface traffic is so bad. It's rated 40. 40% of our roads are rated 40, which are poor, like very poor, and there's no prospect of them on the horizon of getting them fixed. It'll take millions of dollars. So anyway, also, Lynn, thank you for asking about what's behind the hotel on Highway 12, and I'll tell you what it is. It's Kenyon Webster, who ought to be in prison because we found him years ago. He altered the environment traffic survey, which resulted in the Barlow being built. And then today we have the consequence of him not only altering that, he's always been pro-business, and there was a group of us that had a meeting, and the purpose of our entire meeting was to get Larry McLaughlin to fire him because he was caught in so many things that were like legally prosecutable. Like I said, altering the traffic survey
seconds.
and say what?
You have 30 seconds.
But anyway, he's trying to get around this, as easily as possible. And Christine and Lynn, I hope you get in touch with me because I know where the bodies are buried. About development here in this town, and Kenyon Webster, who belongs in prison, frankly, for what he's done. He's ongoing. He is all pro business. He has no
2 minutes
interest
are
in
up. Thank you.
for Sebastopol. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Coming back to the room, no comments in the room. Anybody else out online who would like to make a comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will close public comments. On to statements of conflict of interest. I'll start. I have one with Campanella because you're moving in right down the street from me. I'm very excited. So I will recuse myself on item A.
I will recuse myself from item C. I am in conflict with proximity to the Hopmonk project and the sign program.
I have a conflict with Campanella and Bank of America, so I'll recuse myself.
Great. So I'm going to hand this over to Chair Member Bush to run this in my absence while I step out.
Okay, Susie, looks like we're just missing John.
Yeah, we're just missing John.
Okay,
A few minutes.
thanks everyone for your patience. Trying to operating on a sort of a bit of a skeleton crew summer schedule.
We got chairs.
But no vice chair or real chair today. So it's a terrible joke. Sorry. It's design review board jokes here.
The skeleton crew, that only works around Halloween.
That's true. Right on, Bill. Thanks.
Linda's presentation is far better than her average. Even had some facts. Yeah. Yeah. She talks whenever she can. She's been doing it for 20 years. I tuned it out, but she woke me up and she said, Kenny Webster Consultant.
Yeah, we are ready for 7-8, and then one of the applicants is here too, Brett.
All right. Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
Sorry. Okay, so the item we have in front of us tonight is proposing signage for the new Campanella restaurant at 7355 Healdsburg Avenue. The project proposes to add new signage, one projecting wall sign for the restaurant located at the above address. Previously, this restaurant was called Flavors and had 2 approved signs, one non-illuminated wall sign and one non-illuminated awning sign. The applicant is proposing the following signage below. It's a double-sided projecting logo sign, which is 20 square feet each. As we For the sign ordinance, double face signs are accounted for each face. So this project exceeds the allowed square footage by 34 square feet and requires an exception from the design review board. Staff feels that granting this exception for the sign would be appropriate, as the position of the sign would make it easier to read from all sides of the street. It would also make it a visible landmark and enhance the building, as the design of the sign is to be consistent with the nature of the business. With that, staff is recommending approval for the signage. And if the board finds that any revisions are necessary or a continuance is appropriate, then staff recommends the board provide direction for redesign to the applicant in the event of a continuance or rational event for denial. That concludes my staff report, and I believe we do have the applicant here to answer any questions.
I have a quick question for you. So the sign itself, if it was just one-sided, it would meet the square footage allotment?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. And I believe that there was an existing sign there for the Flavors restaurant, and I know it's roughly in the same location, but from my review of it, that sign was approved in error by the previous planning associate planner. So that's why we need the exception. Normally, if it was that one single face sign, it would just be a staff level approval.
So if you have this projecting sign and you have one side signage and one side blank, and it meets the square footage, then it wouldn't need to come before the board.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I know that we've talked about signage requirements at previous meetings, and this is another kind of classic example of how our signage ordinance is a little outdated and a little cumbersome, in my opinion.
Yes.
So,
Thanks, John.
absolutely.
Great. Any other questions for staff?
I don't have any.
I don't either. Okay. So if we'd like to hear from our applicant, if the applicant's in the room, like to give a presentation on their signage, they're welcome to do so.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, Brett.
Okay, great. I really don't have much to add. We did install the sign single-sided to the building already, just so that our customer could get some exposure while the build-out was being done. And we have a double-sided flag sign that's sticking out of the side where the other to-go sign was from Flavor. And we're happy to remove that one if you wanted to kind of give it a little bit more space for the double-sided sign that we're hoping to be able to install.
Okay, great. Thanks. Do we have any questions for our applicant? No? Okay. Any comments from members of the public for our applicant? Okay, see you none. We'll bring this back to the board and deliberate. Dr. Lynn, you want to get us kicked off down there?
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate sign, and that particular area warrants a double face sign. That I have no trouble with it, clean, neat. But there's two things I could see that I think would improve the sign. One is to put a little frame around it, just trim it a little bit. It looks a little bit overly simple, and it could be just a little bit more sophisticated if it had a good frame on it. Second thing is just particularly reading it out of the off the computer, trying to read the kitchen and garden words that are underneath Campanella. They seem quite small, and I think they'd be more effective if they were at least twice as big. That's it.
Thanks, Lynn. How about you, Christine?
I think that we need to make a change in our ordinance because I think a projecting site is double-sided by its nature. So it should just count as 1 square footage. So although I can't change the ordinance here in this seat, I'm saying that's the rule I'm going to apply. So I'm fine with the sign. And I applaud anybody that wants to open a restaurant in this economic environment. So go for it.
I'd go ahead and echo that same sentiment. I think it's a really lovely sign. I love the brand, and I think it's certainly acceptable to have it, to grant the exception as presented by staff and as well as the board. So I think we're all in favor of the sign. If there's any motions to be carried, I think we can make those now.
Could I just make a comment?
Certainly.
Yeah, I'd like to find out if there is any support for putting a frame around that sign, or if we should perhaps just make it optional and let the sign owner decide.
Can I speak to that now, or is that not appropriate?
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, if you look at Lynn, thank you for the comment. If you look at the side of the sign, it does have a green, it is green around the edge of the sign. But also what you can't tell from this picture is that the Campanella logo is actually dimensional. So it is actually a white acrylic dimensional letters that are bolted to that base. And so that does give it that kind of element that you're referring to, that dimensional element. It's not just a flat piece of vinyl on that metal.
Okay, I'm not trying to push it. I'd just like you to consider the option of both my comments, that's all.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks, Lynn. I have no other comments. I mean, I'm comfortable with the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks.
I would like to motion to approve this lovely sign and grant the exception without any changes.
Great. Okay, we have a motion. Any seconds?
Second?
Okay. Any other comments prior to the second? I have none.
All right. Board Member Dealer,
Aye.
Board Member Level,
Aye.
and Board Member Bush.
Aye.
All right. So that motion passes with 3 ayes and 2 abstentions of Board Member Balfe and Vice Chair Henley. So Brad, that approval is granted. There is a 7-day appeal period starting today. Should anybody want to appeal this project, you have 7 days from today, which is September 3rd by 5 p.m. to the Planning Department at 7120 Bodega Avenue, Sebastopol. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along here. Item number B, we have 7175 Healdsburg Ave. That's the Bank of America.
Yes. So this is from Johnson Sign Company proposing signage for the Bank of America at 7175 Healdsburg Avenue. The project proposes to replace and update their existing signage with updated illuminated signage. As our code requires, any illuminated signage within the downtown core does require approval from the Design Review Board. So that is why we are here at this meeting. Overall, the signage is a replace kind of like for like as far as the size goes, but it is that internal illumination that is triggering the design reviews review today. With that, the staff feels that the project is consistent with the site and style, and based on the facts and findings and analysis set forth in the staff report, staff is recommending approval. Alternatively, as mentioned before, if the board finds that any revisions are necessary or continuance is appropriate, staff is requesting that the board direct a redesign to the applicant or continuance or rationale in the event of denial. With that, I will conclude my staff report. I believe we have the applicant here today to answer any questions. So I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, thanks, John. Does the board have any questions for staff?
I have none.
I have none.
I have none. Okay, let's see. How about a presentation from our applicant? Please, yes. And then you have to push a little button there to get your voice boosted.
The lights on, is that good? Todd with Johnson Signs, and we are replacing the current signs with their new branding, which they're doing nationwide. So they're actually replacing smaller footprints, so they're smaller square footage. The current signs are illuminated, so these will be illuminated as well internally. So like for like, but a little bit smaller and new logo. That's about it.
Question.
Yes.
So you're saying that all the signs that you are proposing to be internally illuminated are currently internally illuminated signs?
Yes.
Okay.
How about you, Lynn? You have any questions for our applicant?
No, but I'm wondering if that is the case, why would you need a design review?
Okay, so my question also to the applicant was the same as your two both questions.
Yeah, it's in our code. So section 17.120050C2, external illumination is preferred over internal illumination in all zoning districts. Internally illuminated signs must be reviewed and approved by the design review board.
Okay.
So that, because it's written in our code,
Okay.
unfortunately, even though it is like for like, yeah.
I just thought it might be a grandfather clause to that, but maybe not. So,
I didn't see anything in the exemption part of it because we did look through there. Usually when it's not illumination signs, if there's previous sign, like if you're replacing like for like, it is part of the exemption that you don't need a sign permit to do that. But the illumination part is unfortunately something from the past that has stayed within that section of the code. So
okay. Thanks, John. Do we have any other questions for our applicant? No? Any questions from the public regarding this item on the agenda? Seeing none.
oh, we do.
Oh,
have-
is there a hand?
Yep.
Excuse me. Okay. We have a question for our applicant regarding this item on the agenda for the Bank of America.
Yes. So anyway, I'd just like to remind you, since we're talking about lights, that we are living in our environment, somewhat hostile to our health and stuff like that. But the lights, the LEDs, I'm wondering what kind of lights you're using there. LEDs, although they've replaced largely fluorescent and of course incandescent, which have been outlawed, which were safer. The LEDs are not all that safe. The thinking the pulsed radiation of all the things that we're exposed to, including the pulse microwaves from our cell phones and all the other wireless devices, promotes cellular growth, as in cancer. But the LEDs and the lights that we have, our other lights were replaced. They were sodium free. But anyway, they've gotten, I'm sorry to say, more dangerous. And we're having a sort of an epidemic of not only cancer, but also blindness, with the lights are not healthy. They're bright, but they're not healthy. So my question is what kind of lights are there currently there, and what will they be replaced with? And it's good to keep in mind in my experience, because I'm electrosensitive, and that it is a good idea to take into consideration the health and environmental effects of all of your decisions. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
So those the current signs were neon when they were first installed. Years ago, they were retrofitted to LED, and we're proposing LED now. So,
All right, thank you.
Do you have a timeline for the years ago?
probably more than 7.
More than 7?
Yeah, probably first generation LEDs.
Thank you.
Do we have any more comments from the public? Items on the agenda? No? Okay. Great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead and bring this back to the board to deliberate, and maybe we'll start right back down on the far end. Lynn?
I'm fine with it. Looks good.
How about you, Christine?
On the one hand, we've been adamantly against the internally illuminated sign for good reason, in my opinion. And so we've denied it across the board. But now we've got this situation where we have a pre-existing condition. And, one of the reasons why we wanted to deny the internally illuminated was proximity to residential, and there's residences right across the street from this. But on the other hand, it's a pre-existing condition that's, long-term established. So I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I'm going to share the exact same sentiment. I mean, I had the impression that it was a proposed internally illuminated sign, and we've been pretty clear on the board to not allow such, circumstances. We've been consistent, I think, in regards. It would be a favoritism type of issue, but seeing it's a 1-for-1 replacement, I'm in agreement with the board here on this, that it would be an acceptable reason for allowing this sign to go ahead and go through. I also like the logo and the brand and the color of the sign and such. It's I think it may be even softer than the red, the hard red. So yeah. So in that case, I share again your sentiments as well.
Okay, so I was on the fence, but I'll go. It seems like the board is going in that direction, and I don't have any comment on the sign itself. That's not our topic anyway. But it's this tricky area of internally illuminated, but it has a long established use as internally illuminated. So, I understand Linda's comments about the LED. It's difficult for me. I almost can't drive at night anymore because my eyes are so sensitive to it. So, I understand that, but that's what's available to use. I believe there's no other option. And that's not like a situation where you're going head on with cars. But I do understand her sentiment about the LED, but my tendency is to go with the board, sentiment with the board.
Okay, great.
Can I
Yeah,
respond to Christine? For the most part, I think that flat plastic signs internally illuminated just don't belong on Main Street. But that particular building is very modern by comparison to the rest of the buildings, and those signs seem appropriate for the design of that building.
I agree. In fact, bringing the signage down in scale, I think even helps accentuate the linearity of the building and some of the features that are actually a little bit unique to that building. So pushing it to that, fascia limit like it was, and now bringing it down in scale, I think that actually kind of sets it off even better. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the application as submitted.
I have a motion. How about a second?
Okay, I would like to add to that motion.
Sure.
That the reasoning behind this is the fact that we have a long-term pre-existing use of internal illumination.
Okay. And Lynn, are you acceptable with that revision to the motion? What Christine just said?
Can you clarify that?
Yes, you propose that we accept the internal illumination. That's the topic of discussion. I don't think it's any other aspect of the sign. And I'm just adding to that the reasoning behind this, because we've been so adamant about not accepting this internal illumination, is because it's a long-term use of internal illumination. I mean, it's been like this for, how long would you say? A couple decades? Yeah.
I moved here 30 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So that's the reasoning. I think we want to be very clear about that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not a change of anything.
Right.
So.
This is great. Yeah, good clarification. Okay, so we have a first with a bit of an amendment there. About a second.
Do we need to repeat that motion, or?
That would be helpful because there was a bit of a change there. So
Yeah. So should I re-motion, or do you want to change it?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
we do have a motion on the table. So if Lynn wants to repeal his motion, we would have to do that.
Okay.
Because we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I cancel my.
Previous motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay,
there,
yeah.
but- yeah. Okay.
We must
You're-
follow the rules.
Yes.
Okay, so I am making a motion that we approve the internal illumination based on the fact that we have a long-standing multi-decade use of internal illumination with these signs.
Okay, we have a first. How about a second? Again.
Well, I'm going to make a new first. I'm going to move that we accept the wisdom of Christine and not make this a new protocol because of the history of this. And other than that, I'm for it. And I move that we accept it.
I think
So
that was a comment
that's a
in a
comment,
second.
yeah.
I think that was a comment
Yeah.
and then a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so.
So
I think
second
we're
on
good to go.
Christine's motion with the comment about, yeah. Okay.
So that was the second with a comment. Great.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. How about you, John?
Board Member Deedler,
Aye.
Board Member Level,
Aye.
Board Member Bush.
Aye.
All right. So that motion passes with 3 ayes and 2 abstentions of Board Member Balfe and Vice Chair Hanley. As mentioned earlier, that this project has a 7-day appeal period. If anybody would like to appeal that decision, they do need to make it by 5 p.m. September 2nd or 3rd. September 3rd to the planning department. Yeah. So Zuzi's going to grab Melissa and Marshall so we can move on to the next item.
Yes, it is. I'm going to have to go ahead and.
I think it's B of A next, isn't it?
We did that.
Oh, I didn't. I was available for that, but that's cool. Let's talk about Hopmonk.
I think we thought that you were right on the border of it, but when Zuzi looked at the map just a few minutes ago, it's like literally the curb is what
It's cool.
sets you from not being in that recusal area. So.
That's all right. Hey, I'm good. I was ready, but that's fine.
Kerry got the taste of power.
I know. You can't pry it out of his hands once he's got it. Cool. All righty. Well, let's talk about item C, Hopmonk. All right. Can you give us an overview?
Yeah. So this is an application from Bill DeCarli proposing replacement signage at the Hopmonk Tavern at 230 Petaluma Avenue. So the project proposes to replace the changeable letter marquee sign with an electrical digital sign with stagnant non-moving letters. The sign is 50 inches in height by 84 inches in width. The applicant has submitted this sign as of June 18th, and due to the illumination of the new signage, as the last one, requires the approval from the design review board as it's internally illuminated. Let's see. Staff feels that granting this exception for the sign would be appropriate as the lighting will be dimmed to reduce glare for oncoming traffic, and any broadcasting words will not be in moving rotation, further decreasing safety risk for passing motorists. If approved, the project signage would replace an old aging sign technology with far more current technology. Staff is also was informed by the applicant that, or has informed the applicant that any work within the Caltrans right-of-way would require any additional approval permits from Caltrans. As mentioned in the written statement, it gives the ability for Hopmonk to change the wording on the signage remotely without putting restaurant staff at risk in the event of another vehicle wreck that could take place. The applicant has also proposed that the city and other public agencies may utilize the sign for public safety events for noticing during cases of emergency such as fire, floods, or other disasters. With that, staff feels that the proposed signage is compatible. Should the board feel otherwise, we are requesting either a continuance or providing direction on redesign or rationale in the event of a denial. With that, I will conclude my report. I know that the applicant is here in the room. Should you have any questions?
Do we have a presentation from the applicant?
I have a question for John too.
Sure.
I don't. Do you have a presentation? You're just gonna.
No, it's actually all in the documents.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Unless you have anything to add, Todd, he's actually the one who's
Great.
So no presentation. Christine, I'm happy to answer your question.
Okay, so my question is regarding the sign at the fire station.
Mhm.
Is the fire station exempt from design review board? Is
Correct.
that, so they can just put that up?
Yes, and I know that they have reduced the brightness of that sign. We did have some members of the public call in about the sign being too bright at night, especially when there's rain or it's cloudy out or anything like that. So they have turned the intensity of that signage down. I did reach out to Patty from the building and fire department. So yes, the fire station and schools are kind of in the category of exempted agencies from typical permitting requirements.
That's really interesting because those signs have cropped up suddenly all over the place at schools and fire stations. As if there was a grant or something.
I don't know. It's possible. That would be something that I need to check with the fire department. It would make sense if it was some sort of a grant requirement. I know that, that signage is a lot more effective in, when there is an emergency, they can basically update that signage from anywhere. You don't need to go out there and physically do it.
That's my
But
question.
I'm with you. I do see it at more schools and other.
Well, that's where
kind
I've
of-
been noticing them all of a sudden everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be on sale at Costco.
Yeah. Or Grant.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thanks, John.
Great. And then I think we go to comments from the public before we have our deliberation.
Yeah. If you have any comments for the applicant,
Do we have any comments for the applicant before? Nope. Okay, seeing none, let's go out to the public. Does anyone have a comment? Okay. Yep, we have a hand raised.
You can hear me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I thought I heard you say that the city had a sort of like a tradition of not electrifying the town via signage and lights and the electronics and digital stuff. Anyway, I think that's what we need to do. I'm telling you, we're in a pivotal time with all the electronics and the wireless stuff, which is killing us. It's a slow kill with the cancers and everything else. And Sebastopol of all places, they took a stand with the smart meters about 14 years ago, and they got overruled by one vote. Patrick Slater, thank you. But anyway, I'm in opposition to more digital stuff and also Christine, it pays to complain. The reason why we've got these street lights is because PG&E foisted on us years ago, and Dante Preti, who's a public works superintendent, he was hand in hand with again Kenyon Webster to replace our older, less bright, healthier, environmentally healthier lights. So anyway, you can go to the city council and complain and get the brightness of the street lights reduced. But so anyway, my point about these signage is that I'm in opposition to it. We need to keep things analog and manual. We just don't need any more electrification and man-made pulsed electromagnetic fields in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Right, any other, please? Yeah, of course.
Push. Okay. Thank you very much for your time and consideration on this. So I just wanted to be clear that we're not just simply looking to replace our existing marquee just because. It was a car came down and hit a street sign and slammed it into the top of our marquee, and now it's crushed. And it looks pretty rough. It's in horrible disrepair. And it was actually getting kind of tired before that. And also the illumination that's there now is internal, and it is LED. And also, we mentioned that, because somebody already drove down the road and hit it. Took 16 years for that to happen, but it did happen. And so, from a safety standpoint, it would be a good move for us. And then also, we send staff out there every day to change that thing manually. It doesn't matter if it's raining or 102 degrees. We send folks out there, and if we could avoid that, it would benefit everybody, the management of the restaurant and everything. And also, we have a music venue there, and have, we put on, call it 4 shows a week. And that has to be updated every day because the show passes and we need fresh information up there. So anyway, it would be a great benefit to us. And I think it's a very clean look. It is modern, and I mean, that's the wave of the future. And that's that in my mind, that's where we're going. You can't ignore what's coming down the road. So anyway, that's all I've got to say. You have any questions for me? Anybody?
Actually, I did. I was just curious, the orange materiality, what will that material be?
The orange?
The orange, yeah, what will that
Oh,
be?
that would be vinyl, I believe, right?
Painted aluminum?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Mhm. And the sign that we have there now
Painted.
has the orange
Yeah.
on it. Yes.
And then the beer garden, is that static text?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. It's just right to be fresh.
Can you explain to me exactly how this existing sign is internally illuminated?
There is a board, right, with channels, right, to slide the letters on, and behind that there is lighting. There used to be neon way back, and then about 6+ years ago we switched it over to LED because it's just more energy efficient, and it doesn't. The maintenance on the LED is by far easier than neon.
I wish we had Ted here. So,
Yeah.
because what I'm seeing is kind of a backlit sign. Like, I would love to hear a dissertation on the difference between an internally illuminated, where the letters themselves are illuminated, versus something that basically has lighting behind it, because I think we've approved backlit signs. Carrie's not here. There's nobody here to help me out. I need Ted.
Backlit sign would be just like a face with lights behind it.
Right, which is kind of what we,
A lens, just like this is just a lens.
right,
It just has tracks on it for
right.
changeable lenses. It could be like a Safeway sign with a plastic lens on it and lights behind it. So internal illumination, you can do that with halo lit light, or just like a wall or face lit or hinge lit.
How are we defining internally illuminated? This is a question for
Yeah, I'd have to look.
Staff.
through the-
Externally illuminated would be with lights shining at it.
Yeah.
Internally illuminated-
no, but you can have logical understanding of things. I deal with this of building codes all the time, but the definition by the agency doesn't necessarily follow logic. So I would like to know what their definition is. What are we conforming to? Right? Like, it's like in my building experience, there's rebuild and remodel, and it's like they all have specific meanings according to the agency. And if we're going to get down to this level of nuts and bolts, it would be helpful to know what our definition of internally illuminated is, if we have one.
I don't see a definition for internal illumination. Which is kind of an issue.
Slightly.
Let me ask a question while he's looking that up. How much orange is going to be on that
It's
sign?
very little. It's maybe a square foot, something like that. Yeah, just on the top and maybe our logo. Yeah, it's not a big orange wall or anything.
Yeah.
Gosh, no.
Okay, that
Yeah.
colored picture is scary.
Yeah, it's 12 by 12 orange with green. Never mind. I'm joking.
So,
I need to stop.
I mean, this mock-up is pretty rudimentary, so not to scale. What we're seeing here in this proposed mock-up.
Todd?
Yeah, and the rendering is kind of accurate because it's same size as the other one, so.
Is that orange is,
It's 2D, so you're not seeing the depth and everything.
yeah. So that orange is more than a square foot of orange.
It's like the other ones.
Yeah. It's very little. That's not going to be any larger than what's there right now.
Okay. You okay with that? Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, then I think we move to deliberation, pending John's research. Any thoughts, feelings from the board?
Looks good to me.
Okay, brief.
So yeah, there is no specific definition for internal versus external illumination. We do have lighting of signs, which if you can make me co-host, I can share my screen. But it does have a provision in there about backlighting of panels.
Okay. Christine, any thoughts?
First, I have to say, poor hapless Andreas Salas. What did he do this time? He ran into a sign. So I think it was at 2 a.m, he told me.
It was midnight.
Yeah.
It was 11:30 something.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. So my issue with these new types of signs is that we're treading into new territory here completely, and we haven't thought it out. And these signs are cropping up everywhere, and it's not your typical sign, and there's issues and ramifications. Like my personal feelings don't matter so much, but like I find them incredibly distracting. Like we're driving around, I feel, to me personally, that they're dangerous. And but it's a new kind of lighting and a new kind of sign, and I really feel that if we say yes to this, then we're saying yes to everybody doing it. But I feel that we need to make some thought into whether or not we want these in our downtown core, whether these are appropriate. I'm sorry that the fire department got to just do it. I find that sign, to be honest with you, dangerous. And I feel that before I could, say anything more, I feel like some study and thought has to go into this specific type of sign, and we need to have an ordinance around this type of sign before we make any decision. Otherwise, if we approve this today, it's anything goes from here.
Marshall?
There's a sign like this at the Art Center, and it's been there during the seven years that I've been here, and I like the sign. It's very informative, tells me what's happening there. And I understand the reluctance to go more modern with buildings and signs, but I think I don't think it'll excuse me. I don't think it'll start a gold rush of signs just like it just yet. So I like it. I support it.
I would like to make a quick comment on Marshall's comment. Okay, my hesitancy with this type of signage has nothing to do with being reluctant to go more modern. I just want to make that clear. It's the technology and the lumens and a lot of aspects that I feel are not being considered. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't, after consideration, think about this, but I think that this is a new technology and a new thing, and it needs to be thought out. But it has nothing to do with modern or not modern.
Yeah, I mean, I would also support a study and further consideration of a sign ordinance and updates. I don't think that we have provisions to deny on that now, since the internal illumination is not spelled out in our code.
And I'm certainly sympathetic to all the aspects that you mentioned in your application and having staff out there. And, you know, it only takes once in the wrong time and wrong place. And so I absolutely get that. So I also am in support of this application and very much in support of let's look at our signage ordinance because it desperately needs some updating. Eavesdropping on your earlier conversations, it sounds like there's some other things that we could be clarifying in our signage ordinance as well. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think Christine's point is well taken, but it isn't. I don't think those signs are universally bad. I look at the Hopmonk sign, and it seems appropriate to me. I look at the fire department sign and think that's tacky. Why would they put something so tacky at that corner where everybody gets to see it while they wait at the stop signs there? So there's a little more to it than just the light coming off of it.
The concern that I have here is that is setting a precedent for this sort of sign. I mean, once we say yes, anybody can do it. We're not going to be able to say no. So, and I don't think that we really, I'm just expressing my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think that we really understand what a town full of these signs is going to look like. I don't think we've thought about that. And I think it's something that's worth considering. I mean, I just don't think that we're considering this. We're just, I mean, I love Hopmonk and I would love to support their business in any way I can, but this is I think we need to consider. And I totally understand where they're coming from and what they want to try to do. I understand that. But we got 20 of these signs downtown, and what do we have? I think we need to consider it. I feel very strongly about that.
Would you feel more comfortable if the motion was crafted in replacement in kind for internal illuminated sign being replaced in kind with internal illuminated sign? That way.
Well, I think that that's a backlit sign. That's not an internally illuminated sign. So,
Well,
I mean,
our code is silent on it, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, it's just, this particular sign, you know, we're going to open up the door for this kind of thing, which is these lit signs like this with this. I don't think that you can deny that it's a different type of light experience when you go by it.
No question.
And it's I'm not saying a yes or a no. I'm saying it's worthy of some consideration for sure.
Sure. I mean, I guess I would only add that, you know, because currently in our code, any illuminated signage is required to come to the design review board. You do have some sort of discretion over any new signage that does come. And, you know, this is kind of the start of it with this one here. But, you know, the other part of looking at the sign ordinance and yes, including that type of study and look at how maybe other jurisdictions are handling illuminated signage is part of that discussion that comes forward. I understand kind of, Christine, where you're saying that, you know, if we approve it today, we're going to get 15 other applications in the future, but you do have discretion over those future signage. So,
yeah, see, I'm not okay with that because I feel like once you approve it, you really can't say no. I mean, you can say you have discretion, but you're really not. I mean, you have to look at it from a legal standpoint. Like, you know, you can't favor one person over another person. That's why I was very careful about the internally illuminated sign, how we worded that. Because we've had many people come before us that wanted internally illuminated signs, and we said no. So how are those people going to react now when suddenly we're approving all these internally illuminated signs? Well, we have a really, I think, a strong basis for the Bank of America sign because it's always been like that. But this is a new sign, and this is a new kind of a sign that we don't really have. It's internally illuminated, but it's a different sort of a thing. It's a new thing that's cropping up all over the place, and I think we should consider what that is.
Could we,
That's all I'm saying.
could we tie the approval to the fact this is an event venue? And so they're going to have changeable events and therefore need to update their signage data. It's not an, I mean, it technically is an advertising tool, but it's not like, the bank advertising interest rates. It's saying open mic with Sunny.
Well, here comes one of these signs at Pacific Market and Faircrest Market.
But I wouldn't call those event venues.
Well, but they're changing their signs all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is the point that you're making right here is that's why I feel like we need to have this discussion. We need to have an ordinance. We need to say, okay, we're going to have these signs for these certain specific uses. We don't have that right now. And I don't think that we're in a position right now to create this on the fly. I mean, I think that this is something we're going to start to see a lot of. And I think that we need to have some understanding of what we're getting into, because otherwise just try to imagine a bunch of these signs all over the place in the downtown core and people driving around.
Pacific Market's a great example, actually. I mean, Faircrest is the same way. They've got the same analog signs that they're up there on, like, I think a scissor lift or something, changing
Scary
those.
sometimes.
Yeah, they talk about dangerous. No, it's a really, really.
But this is a new
good point.
technology that's coming along and it's going to become available. It's going to be easy for people to get. I looked at the price. It's not that expensive. And suddenly, oh, wow, I think I'll do this too. And then we need to consider what that's going to look like. I'm repeating myself at this point, but yeah.
Point well taken. And John, I assume we cannot create interpretations as part of our motions. Nope. Yeah, no power. Okay, cool. And any other board members have further comments? No?
I would support approving this and then immediately working on the sign ordinance. I'll just leave it at that. I think there's got to be some way we can direct the planning department to start working on it. I don't know the details of how that would work. That's all.
John, could you comment on the process for updating the sign ordinance?
Yeah, I think, the easiest process would be to agendize the sign ordinance kind of review with the design review board at a future meeting. And then from there, staff would develop the ordinance modification and changes. That would, we can submit that to the design review board and, get a recommendation. And then it would go to planning commission for recommendation, city council, and then city council for approval or modifications. And then for ordinances, there is a first reading and a second reading. And then 30 days after the second reading is when the ordinance goes into effect. So it's not a process that is quick, because it does take a lot of staff time to do. I can bring this to the planning director and city management and see where in our priority list it falls into.
I might add that we could, rather than revise the sign ordinance, maybe have an addendum, just this topic. I mean, this is a completely new animal.
Yeah,
This is not a modification of anything that we have.
correct. But it would be kind of creating a subsection of the sign ordinance.
Right, like an addendum. So we're not addressing, although I would, while I was at it, do that outboard sign and put it
Yeah.
on both sides. But I'm trying to not make it complicated. I'm trying to make it simple. But I feel that this is a completely new animal, and we have no policy for it. We go and say, okay, we're going to let them do it, which I'd love to do.
Mhm.
Then we're going to close the door. That's a slippery slope, a very slippery slope.
Yeah, and
So-
unfortunately, that kind of does happen in the planning world. Is ordinance modifications do happen over time.
Yeah, but you have
where-
me here saying something now. So that horse has left the starting gate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I don't know how else to answer that. other than the process that we would have would be to modify the sign ordinance. And, you know, it sometimes takes a project like this to move that process forward.
So to agendize the sign ordinance, and I'm sorry you guys are sitting through this conversation about bureaucratic process. I promise we'll get a motion shortly. To get this agendized, to modify the sign ordinance, it sounds like the city manager needs to put this on the priority list and then it can be agendized, or could we
No,
pick a date?
we can still pick a date and go over
Okay.
the items that you would like to modify, change, revise, include, look at. And then as far as kind of dedicating the staff time to move forward with that as a full kind of council item in the future, it's probably something that we would have to get, I would at least have to talk to the community development director and then city manager to see,
Okay,
you know, where we can prioritize staff time.
cool.
Because unfortunately, it's not a revenue generating project.
Sure.
That's the current direction from city management and city council, is to look at revenue generating projects. So,
And by the way, I have a list of things that I would like to see changed in the ordinances.
okay. Yeah. And we can include it as part of the
Cool.
future discussion.
Well, I think we should try to get that agendized for, I don't know if our next meeting has a full agenda or not, but let's see if we can't at least get the discussion. If we have a
Started.
light, yeah, let's
Yeah.
get it started.
I totally concur.
Okay. But back to today, do we have a motion for the item before us? Not all at once, though.
We don't have a motion yet, but.
No, I'm asking if somebody would like to make one.
Okay, and I make a motion that the request, this sign request, be approved as submitted.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay. All right.
Any further discussion?
Any further comments, thoughts?
Yes, I'm going to abstain from voting on this motion because I feel very strongly that we're not prepared to make a decision on this.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a mistake to approve this sign right now, given the circumstances. So I'm just going to abstain.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm in your camp, Christine. I think we're setting a precedent here. I do think that it's unfair to hold an applicant to an ordinance that doesn't exist yet, but I think we've got to get that ordinance sorted like right now. So I think we got to push forward with it. I'm going to vote to approve this application, and don't tell your friends, I guess. And we'll have this onslaught of signage applications in the next 6 months while we get this sorted. That's my comment. Any other comments?
No, I
Okay.
agree with what you said.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anyway, I vote
We're
yes.
just going to call.
Oh, okay. Board Member Deedler,
Yes.
Board Member Level,
Abstain.
Board Member Belf,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Hanley.
Aye.
So that motion passes with 3 ayes, 1 abstention, or 2 abstentions, with Board Member Level and Board Member Bush. So, Bill, there is a 7-day appeal period that you've already heard it by now, is, even though I keep forgetting the date, September 3rd by 5 p.m. to the Planning Department at 7120 Bodega Avenue.
All righty. Thanks very much. Thanks for hanging in there. All right. Now we've got item 8, the regular agenda. We have no items on the regular agenda. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any subcommittee updates? I don't think any members of the subcommittee are here to update us. Carrie, if you want to come back.
I'll wait for Carrie to come back.
Okay, great.
Kind of related to the subcommittee stuff. But
Mhm. Oh, thanks, and Susie. Oh, did he bail?
Did you leave already?
I thought it was the last one and you just left.
He's like, I'm out. All right, that's fair.
Not around? Okay.
Okay.
So as far as subcommittee updates go, we are going to be looking at starting back up the design review subcommittee and finishing off those SB9 standards that we had started. Is it over a year ago, I think, Christine, or almost 2 years ago now? Yeah, it's been a while. So we did adopt the objective design standards with Opticos. They're also providing the SB9 standards. We actually have 2 projects that we're in the review and approval stage for SB9 applications. So
What kind of projects would those be?
the urban lot split. And
Yeah, right, but so what?
their ministerial process.
So people are actually applying to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically they're subject to our municipal code and then state law for SB9 standards. The SB9 development standards that Opticos has been working on with us would kind of give us a larger playbook of opportunities for that for those types of projects, because currently, as state law goes, it's very limited and vague in what they require and don't require. There's simple requirements that, the new lot creations cannot be more than a 60-40 or less than a 60-40 split, at least allowing the creation of an 800 square foot unit. So
How many square feet?
an 800 square foot unit. So there's a lot of different regulations regarding that. So we are going to be looking at kicking that back up here pretty soon because it is kind of part of our housing element update to adopt standards for those types of projects. So
I know a lot about it.
yeah, yeah.
So an interesting thought that I'm having here as we're going through all these projects is the rather large number of units that we're adding to our water and sewer system. Is there any discussion about upgrade or increasing capacity, or is there any long-term vision for this?
I know that the Public Works and Engineering Department kind of provide an annual report as to how they get information from the planning department as far as pipeline projects go and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that, future projects there is capacity for. And that is something that they release on a yearly basis. So, and is typically part of our level of service report.
Do they keep track of our capacity in a percentage lot way? Like saying, we have enough, our capacity is at 60%.
Yes, I believe it's percentage based.
Okay. You know where any of those numbers are as far as sewer and water?
So we do have from last year's level of service report. It is part of that and it's on the city's website. I can send it out to the group because typically the planning department puts that report together. But it does have a breakdown of where the sewer and water capacity is.
Yeah.
But I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. You don't need to send it.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing I think that we all should consider, because the money seems to exist initially to start projects and do things, and then the maintenance and upkeep there. And today I went to the post office. I couldn't drive through past the taqueria. That's all fenced off now. That was probably because of that homeless encampment. And then I parked And there's a taqueria truck there, and I got out, and the garbage cans for the city were overflowing and trash was everywhere. And when I was on the one side of the fence, I had the homeless guy pushing the cart. And then on the other side, I had to go to the post office. The guy's sitting right by the bushes with a sign. And the landscaping at the post office is just all dead. And there's all this trash in there. And the steps up to the post office are falling apart, crumbling. And I just thought, it just made me sad. Like, what are we doing? And this is a rhetorical question, but we keep increasing. And this is not a question for anybody to answer. I'm just bringing in for us to have some self-reflection. We're creating all this new stuff, but we're not maintaining it. That was my complaint about the landscaping at the city hall. I mean, it's a disgrace, and we spent $60,000 on that, and it's all dead now. So I'm just putting up a moment of reflection, not expecting any response to it, but it seems to be the trend everywhere. Everything's looks seedy, and my town looks seedy, and it makes me want to cry because I've been here a long time. And I don't see any change in the positive direction. So enough said.
That's all I have for subcommittee updates. So,
All righty, thank you. Any other items, or we're ready to adjourn? I think we did it, guys. Thank you. All right, so with that, I adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you next time on September 24th, 3:30, same place. Thank you.
Good job, one and all.
Recording stopped.